Hey, everybody, welcome. Happy Saturday night. This is the FTN Fantasy Baseball live draft. This is an Eric Cross Beat League online championship, 12-teamer, $150,000 grand prize, and we are going to take you through probably a little bit over an hour of this draft. And before we introduce the man of the hour or the next couple hours, is one of our co-hosts here at FTN Fantasy, ladies and gentlemen, Lucas Biery at Lucas Biery. Biery 33 on the Twitter. Lucas, what's going on, man?
Not too much. Really excited to be able to help commentate. Don't want to say help Eric because I'm sure he has his own plan, but hey, maybe he'll say, hey, what do you guys think? And maybe we can chime in a little bit, but should be fun. Draft season's ready. We're getting spring training news every day and I'm excited. Perfect time of the year.
One of the best dynasty prospect and just overall fantasy people in the world happens to work with us here at FTN. His name is Eric Cross. Eric Cross 04 on Twitter, does a whole bunch of work. He's got his own Patreon going on. He is the man, and he's drafting tonight from the 10 spot. Eric, how you doing? How are you feeling? And how are you going to monster mash this draft today?
Yeah, hey guys, I'm really excited about this. I've been looking forward to it ever since Vlad, you and I talked about this weeks ago. Whenever that was, dealing with a little bit of a neck issue right now, but I'll power through it, and stay strong, and looking forward to this draft.
Yeah. So Eric is thankfully not going on the IL quite yet, but we'll see. Hopefully, we make it to spring training.
I'm day to day at this point, day to day.
All right, so we're getting ready to rock and roll here. The draft will start at the top of the hour here in about 2 minutes. We'll have the draft board up through the whole time. We'll take you through it. And so you drew the 10 pick, and you found out about that this morning. How do you usually go about that once your KDS spot has drawn and you know what kind of like what your plan is? You don't have to obviously give it up right away, but you just have some idea what you planning to do here.
Yeah, first off, I don't think I've gotten a high KDS like choice preference like all draft season. So I'm kind of wondering what's up with that. But I've been in the back of the round more often than not this year, and I think the 10 spot isn't a bad spot to be in. Just there's a chance you get somebody that falls. Like I've had bets fall to me there. Surprisingly enough, I doubt it'll happen again. But maybe a Tucker falls, maybe a Tatis. I think Tatis is the most likely person to fall to that spot. And if not, you still got a really good, stable group of players back there. Freeman, Soto, etc. Maybe a Spencer Strider. So I just kind of want to see how the first several picks unfold, see who falls, and go from there.
Hey Lucas, how would you you're kind of back into the 12-team fold. You've been a main event guy. You are a reigning auction champion in the NFBC overall winner, and so you're really comfortable with the 15-teamers getting back into the 12-team business a little bit. And I know you've done it for many years, but how do you approach the 12-teamer differently? And then specifically like with stolen bases, like how worried are you about getting them? Do you need them in the first couple rounds? What's your overall plan?
Yeah, I'm still going to look for players with a high floor. I'm not just going to throw caution to the wind and just say, oh, just because it's a 12-team league, I can go for a Tyler Glass now whose innings I have concerns about. So I'm still looking for high floor guys. Steals, you want them early, but you can't force them if they're not there. Round pick 15, 16, sometimes there's not always those elite steals guys, so sometimes you can't force it. But yeah, definitely nice to get if you can. But I'm really not going to change my mindset up too much differently other than maybe around 15 and on be a little bit more willing to shoot for upside since those are picks that will be churned all year.
So here we go. I mean, this draft is not messing around. It just started. People are ready
to go.
Want to come out the cross, and here we are. He's a few picks away. The beginning of the draft seems a little by the book, pretty vanilla. And one of the interesting things about these boards is you can sometimes get a feel for if this is going to be a draft where pitching will fall a little bit later or early, or if you have like a rogue drafter or just somebody that's kind of going crazy. So a lot of different ways there. You would Eric, you're on the clock. You can talk us through here as you take this pick.
Yeah, I'm between two guys here. It's a really tough decision between these two. I love both guys. Both are probably the two highest floor players in the game. But I'm gonna go with Juan Soto here over the other guy I was debating on, because I think Soto in Yankee Stadium on a contract year. Like, I think this is going to potentially be like a huge year from Soto, maybe 40 plus home runs. Sucks not get a lot of speed with that pick in the first round, but there's plenty of speed here. So I think guys like Soto and other guys like Judge that don't give you some speed but not a lot. They're not dinged as much as they used to be. I think because you can find speed more easily in the subsequent rounds than you could in years past. So I like that pick there.
Yeah, an excellent floor. Obviously, he's having a really hot spring training. We don't want to put too much into that, and that really shouldn't affect us with these early round guys. We know how good Soto is. I think the only ding is just right, like the at bat. He doesn't get as many at bats and doesn't necessarily run because he walks so much. And obviously, walks are not a category here. But let's see how it goes with him and Judge. Should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I hate how much I love Soto because I'm a Yankees fan. I mean, Red Sox fan, excuse me. But yeah, I think he's in store for a monster year. Probably is. I'm thinking maybe not the same level as that 2020 shortened season he had when he had like a 220 WRC plus or whatever it was. But I think we might see like top 2 year out of him this year. Yeah, and there's Freeman. Freeman was the other guy I was debating between because Freeman I think is the safest bet for first round production. I mean, he doesn't have quite the upside, obviously, of Acuna, Witt, J-Rod, etc. But the dude, I think he's finished top 15 in each the last, I think it was 6 seasons. So if you just want first round talent and not have to worry about it, then like Freeman's your guy. So I almost went Freeman at pick 10 there. That's a good pick at the term.
Yeah, these 12 teamers, I mean, it's especially if you're doing the 15s and you jump in back one of those and you're looking at a turn. What's wrong with having a back end pick in the first round? You're grabbing a Freeman Jordan combo, an Ohtani Harper. It's really fantastic. You can kind of build any way that you want. Here we go. Yeah. Eric is on the clock. What do you like for him here, Lucas? If you were him.
Well, I think Jose Ramirez is an excellent pick, especially to kind of boost him speed at a corner infield position, which is a rarity. I also love Garrett Cole for the stability and the safety, and just to guarantee those 200 plus Ks. So those are the two guys I'd look at hardest.
Now watch Eric go completely off the board.
This is tough. I'm between all. I am going to go Garrett Cole here.
Okay.
There we go.
I was considering Trey Turner pretty hard too because I have the one position I found myself not targeting well this year has been shortstop. Because I think the mindset's like, all right, shortstop's super deep, and it kind of is. But if you wait too long, all of a sudden you're getting into some pretty murky territory when you get past like I don't know, pick 150 or so. When you get past like the Xander Bogaerts, Dansby Swanson range, it kind of dries up a little quicker than it has in years past. So,
hey, Eric, Dusty Wagner, longtime NFBC vet, asking, well, first of all, did you have time to set your KDS before the draft? And did you just leave it straight butter 1 through 12?
I didn't leave it straight butter 1 through 12. I've been trying to go either like the 3, 4, 5 range has been my favorite spot this year because, you're going to get like, look at the guys that went 3, 4, 5 here. Yeah, I don't want, 1 is great, but 2 through 5, 2, you have to make that decision between those 4 guys. 4 or 5, you get to see whoever falls. So I've either been trying to get the 4 or 5 range or even, more so in the 15 teamers back end 14, 15. I think you can do some real good damage on the turn there.
From the 6 pick there, you got a Fernando Tatis, Matt Olson combination, which I think is pretty nice. Yep. I typically don't take Tatis all that early. Of course, it's just more. There's nothing about the talent. It's just like the health risk, maybe a little team context. But you pair that with a Matt Olson who was, looking at the Razzball Player Rater last year, the second top value in fantasy dollars earned behind Ronald Acuna. Just amazing, like 130 plus ribbies, just excellent. So that's a really nice little combo there.
Yeah, absolutely. It just blows my mind that the Braves are able to get him for not a lot from Oakland.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Let's see. Look at that speed in with team 2 there. Bobby Witt, De La Cruz. Is that something you're comfortable with? Either you guys?
I mean, that could be like a league winning start, but that also could put you in a hole. It's obviously Ellie. The range of outcomes with him is so wide. Like he could be a top 5 pick next year easily, or he could be another guy like Cruz and Tatis or Jazz that were just kind of like all the talent's there, but he's still yet to put it together yet. So I want to see what this team does. Okay, Wheeler, there we go. Wheeler with that team is good. I think you need some stability there.
There we go. Turning the corner around 3. We're probably going to get more rounds than we think because this is a ready crew. This is pretty nice to see.
Already, almost 2.5 rounds in 6-7 minutes. That's pretty good. Pretty good pace.
Lucas, any value bump for you with Mookie Betts? I don't know where you already have him ranked, but just a guy that's probably looking to be adding shortstop eligibility on top of everything else. Like, how much does that mean to you, if anything?
I had heard rumors that he might get that shortstop to begin with, which I didn't give much credit to just because we hadn't heard anything. But looking at their depth chart, some had mentioned that could be. I actually took him at number 4 in my Glarf draft in Cleveland, so it's hard to move him up much further. But if you want to take him ahead of Julio Rodriguez, I don't know if I would just for the 30-30, but he's Betts, so I mean, how can you really argue against taking him? Even hard to take him against Bobby Witt Jr., but yeah, he's top of the scale for me.
Yeah, and you know how these draft goes. I mean, anyone that's played fantasy for a while, you just know, just like everything's just does never go as smoothly as you'd like it to. Just over the last couple decades, like the percentage bust rate is pretty high with the first round, the second round, it's close to 40-45%. So a lot of these guys that we're looking at here, I mean, who in the world could have imagined Trey Turner, who was being taken as the first overall guy in so many drafts last year, not as much as Acuna, but still would have a season like that where he wasn't even top 30 in fantasy value. It's really crazy to think about.
And that he needed that really hot last 6 weeks or whatever it was to get to where he was, because you look at the slash line and whatnot through, I want to say it was like the middle of August when he really turned it on, somewhere around there. Yeah, it was very disappointing. Luckily, I didn't have any shares last year, so it didn't really impact me too much. But yeah, I was debating him at 10, but just that first 2/3 of the season last year was still stuck in the back of my mind. So that's why I did not go, or at pick 15. That's why I didn't go him there, where I went Cole. I was hoping Gunnar was going to fall. That was like my option A right there, next pick, but no dice.
That's crazy, the hype Gunnar. I mean, he's going kind of middle of that third round in 12 teamers pretty consistently. Any worry for either of you guys about Corey Seager at this point? Like, it looks like kind of trending like he's not going to be ready for opening day. I mean, core muscle injury, people aren't, I mean, this is not something to mess around with. We all love Corey Seager, but there's got to be some concern.
I think there's always concern with Corey Seager. I mean, he's had off and on injury issues, over the last several years. So I love the guy. I think he's like one of the best, 5-6 pure hitters in the game. But yeah, the fact that he's dealing with this right now, issues he's dealt with in the past, I think there's always a little bit of that caution in the back of my mind when considering Seager, even though he's a phenomenal hitter when he's healthy. And so there's not many better pure hitters in the game.
All right, Lucas and I will keep things busy as you are on the clock here at pick 10.
I don't like any of it. I don't like this spot right now. I don't like this at all. Do I do it? You know what? This is a little early.
Do it. What do you think he's thinking here, Lucas? Yeah, any idea?
I didn't know what he. CJ Abrams to help catch up your speed. Certainly, a guy I'd look at from my mind.
Yeah, Abrams had the insane second half last season. Obviously, in fantasy baseball, we don't really call anybody a league winner. He got 23 roster spots that you're filling, but he was just one of those guys. You had him and Nolan Jones and like Michael King, and you were just soaring and cruising to a championship if your team was in good position. So, hey, Eric, that's not early, man. That's Pablo Lopez is fine. He's around his ADP. Or are you thinking about somebody else that isn't off the board yet?
No, I was thinking about Lopez there. I was debating going another pitcher. I hate going 2 pitchers in the first 3 rounds, but like looking at the hitters there, like I'm not like Altuve. I have a lot of concerns about. Like, can he play a full season this year? Obviously, he's great when he's on the field, but it's having the concerns there, and seeing some of the other bats that are available probably at my next pick. I was gonna let me secure, and Pablo Lopez is a guy that more I looked into. Like when I saw Lopez, like when we started getting some solid ADP data, months ago when all of us degenerates were still drafting in like November, I saw him as like a top 10 SP ADP, and I was kind of questioning that. But then I looked into him more, really dug into the profile. I was, you know what? I like this. The more you look into the profile of Pablo Lopez, the more I loved it. And didn't think I'd be having a lot of shares of him this year, but I think this is my third or fourth share of Lopez. I think he's really solid.
Here we go.
I agree with you there, Eric. He's a pretty easy click when you kind of look through just all the games that he's had. I mean, there's very few red flags outside of the shoulder issues he's had, but by the time many of these pitchers get into their late 20s, almost all of them have health concerns that you can look at. So, it's par for the course.
Yeah, and getting two guys like Cole and Lopez that I feel really confident about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not a lot of risk there, so then that allows me to maybe wait a little bit on my next starter. Maybe get one of the upside guys later, several rounds from now, and then I can start working on other spots here over the next few rounds.
All right, Eric is up here. That's a pretty sexy combo right there. I mean, go with Freeman and Jordan is nice. All right, Eric back on the clock. I will mention, by the way, as Eric gets ready to make his 4th round pick, these names are, of course, hidden. We do not out them as far as the big sticker popping up because that usually shows their last name. But if you are interested in us sharing who you are and your team, you could just let Eric know in the chat there in your draft room. But Team 11 is somebody that a lot of us know, high stakes player Matt Modica. So Matt Modica is the one with the Ohtani, Harper, and then double shortstop turn there. So there we go, Team 11. Randy, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Vlad, I'm curious, in a 12-team online championship versus a 15-team league, whether it's a DC or a Fab league, would you feel differently about filling your middle infield in a 12-team versus a 15, or just take the best players and figure it out down the road?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there are a lot of middle infielders I like that I feel that go in the 200s that I think are 100 picks underpriced. But of course, they have some concerns as well. I'm not necessarily afraid to do this in a 12-teamer, like just kind of take my middle infielder if it is somebody that talented and somebody just coming off a not great season, like Bo Bichette, who was basically like a early 2nd round pick. All of a sudden, he's going in the 4th, 5th. He's solid. And one of the categories that is super, I think, undervalued, underrated are the ratio categories in general, ERA and WHIP, and then batting average. And you can really tank it very quickly. You start taking these 230 hitter, you add a Schwarber to your team, and it just kind of messes up the whole mix. And so having these type of guys like Bichette, Harper, these guys are probably going to hit 280 plus. Bichette usually hits 290 plus. I have no issue kind of going that route.
I agree. I was just curious if there was any thoughts. I've heard some people say you don't want to tie up your middle infield too soon, and I do get that, but I think he's a phenomenal player, so no issues with it whatsoever.
Dave Adams from Chicago. He's going to be drafting his 350 online championships here in a few weeks. It might be in a few weeks. That might be after the Seoul series, the Dodgers and the Padres next week, actually, right? Or in 2 weeks? It's coming up real quick.
The 21st, 2nd, something. I think 22nd. I want to say. Am I the only one that finds it weird and kind of annoying that it's like, they have a regular season series and then it's like more spring training games and then back to. I mean, I don't care, but I'm glad they're doing this series, and I like that they're doing some of the global stuff because I think baseball is the most global game or one of the most global games in the world. Obviously, we have so much talent from the Dominican Republic, Mexico, Venezuela, etc. The USA talent, the Far East talent, Korea and Japan and whatnot. So I'm glad they're doing it, but do it so it's like, all right, that, and then the regular season starts right after that. I don't know why they're doing the whole 5 days more of spring training after the Seoul series,
and it's going to throw quite a loop into just NFBC strategy in general because those games happen a week before the regular season starts, and those 2 games are technically a free look. So if you are drafting after the 21st and after those games have taken place, the Dodgers and Padres that have done good things are going to shoot up ADP. And this is kind of a extreme example, but like somebody who's completely off the board, like a Brusdar Graterol, if he notches a save or gets a win, he's automatically going to be like, who knows where people might take him, even in the teens. If you guys remember 2019, we had a similar situation and it did not work out so smoothly. It was Hunter Strickland getting 2 saves in 2 games. And then I think maybe getting 1 or 0 saves the rest of the season. I remember somebody took him in like the 4th or 5th round. I think it was actually the official rogue drafter guy from Vegas that year. But yeah, it's dangerous. It's crazy how that goes.
In my Cleveland draft, Matty Wood, he grabbed up a reliever from the Dodgers just for that purpose. I think it was Joe Kelly. So there will certainly be that going on for sure.
I think, was that the year where we were all spending so much money on Cincinnati relievers throughout the season? Because it was like a revolving door of like, oh, this guy might close. This guy might close. I think I remember that. That might have been that year.
Closers, the absolute bane of our existence. By the way, we are all part of FTN Fantasy, ftnfantasy.com. If you are not subscribed, if you're interested, we provide the best content, rankings, projections, articles by Eric Cross and Lucas Biery, myself, and many others. Check us out. Seeger5 is the promo code, gets you 5% off. I actually just had my last positional tiers series article come out, and it's about relievers specifically. And it's always fun to dive into it because I'm always discovering and just remembering things that I've forgotten. One of those I'll bring up in a second. He has not been drafted yet. I want to have the etiquette of not bringing up a player that hasn't been drafted, but when he comes up, I'll make sure to touch on him. So Austin asks specifically, how does that early series work for this league? Yeah, so you can decide after Yamamoto's and Glasnow starts if you want to start them in your starting lineup, basically. So it's a free look just for that series, and you have to get them in before the Thursday, I believe, of opening day.
I like the start that Team 1's having right now. Obviously, if Acuna stays healthy, Devers, Lindor locking on that left side of the infield. I think Devers has a nice bounce back year. He's been scalding the ball this spring. Lindor, came off 30-30 year, and then you get Webb and Peralta, pocket aces in the 4 or 5 turn. I think that's pretty solid.
I mean, until this last week's scare of Acuna, like previous to that, anybody grabbing a number 1 pick, you're just jumping for joy because any team you build feels like a super team, feels like you're kind of in a pole position. And here's another example. You can have any combination of players around there. I mean, this one looks fantastic and good ratios and strikeouts and everything, but you can just absolutely build monsters from the 1.
This kind of reminds me of the year after LaDainian and Tomlinson had 29 touchdowns or whatever it was, and people got the number 1 pick the next year. I don't think that worked out overly well. I think he fell off the following year. So hopefully Acuna doesn't. But as long as that knee is healthy for him, I don't see a fall off happening.
And even then, so if he produces 20% less of what he did last year, he still can be the number 1 overall player.
Right. You mentioned how Olsen was number 2 in earnings. I think he was still $20-$30 behind Acuna in earnings. So 20%, he still would have been ahead. You look at what's 20% of his power speed last year? It would put him down to 32, 33 home runs and 55 steals or something like that. So
which is pretty much what we have him projected for. More homers, but
still would have been a little bit above Bobby Witt Jr. along with a better average and OBP. So this is crazy what Acuna can do.
Here we go, middle of the 5th, and the first closer is finally taken off the board. So as you can see, very differently than the draft champions that are draft and hold leagues, the 15 teamers that are popular on NFBC, where the closers go earlier. This is a little bit of a different format because this does involve FAB, free agent bidding. You get $1,000 budget for the season, spend it how you like. Hopefully don't spend it all early. But one of the things is closers is they're just such a pain, thorn in our sides. And there really is some value securing those guys that, the Devin Williams types that are giving you sub 2 ERAs. They're 35% plus strikeout guys. There's a lot of solidness. Lucas, in general, in your drafts, have you been popping one of those top elite closers, or you've been waiting? Do you have a specific strategy for them?
For the DCs or which format?
It's anything in general, or whatever.
Yeah, DCs. This has been a unique year since so many guys stayed firm. You can wait a little bit. So I was able to grab Raisel Iglesias 5th, 6th round at times, which felt like a nice price compared to previous years. But I think there's nothing wrong with grabbing one of the first tier or maybe second tier of closers, just because that security is a great feeling in a DC and even in an OC as well. I think there's nothing wrong with grabbing that closer, because then you can be selective as far as if you want to grab that second closer, you're not just oh, I'm praying that, so and so makes it. That's not always a good feeling. So different ways to do it. No problem with buying at the top of the board.
There, Eric takes his 5th round pick, the versatile second base shortstop, second-year man, Matt McLain. And sounds like you're not too concerned about the injury. Looks like he's on his way back, and you're expecting big things, I assume.
Yeah, I definitely am, and obviously a little more flexibility in that infield now. Now the unfortunate news of Noly Marte being out for half the year with that suspension kind of frees up a little more time there. I don't think it directly affected McLean, but you move Candelario back over to third. I mean, there's just a lot more open space in that infield now. And yeah, I'm not overly worried. I was actually gonna go with either him or Cruz, and team in front of me made my decision easier. Thankfully, I think both. I mean, Cruz has the higher upside, obviously. He's a guy that could be, legit a second-round pick next year if everything clicks. McLean doesn't have that high upside, but it's a guy that was on a near 30-30 pace this year. And I think, 25-25 a year with a solid average. And that Cincinnati lineup should be pretty damn good around him, as we've talked about. So, yeah, I like just the consistent 5-category production and the fact that he has dual eligibility gives me a little flexibility here moving forward. In case we'll see how second base and shortstop fall over the next several rounds, so I can have some added flexibility there if needed.
My goodness, who is Team 12, and why do they love? I mean, it's a good strategy, right? You get all Dodgers, all Braves. It's good, but that's very interesting. I have not seen that before.
So let's just draft all Dodgers, Braves, and Astros and Rangers. There you go,
and collect at the end of the year.
Yep, and that's a fun 3 pitching. Obviously the 2 hitters up top, but Glasnow, Yamamoto, and Miller. I mean, I love Bob Miller. Oh, and Cole Reagans.
Goodness. Holy moly! And that's his price has gone up. So he has been he was typically in the DC season is going around pick 100, and lately in OCs, which is this format here, he's been up to around 75. So this isn't that far off, but it is still about a round off where he goes. But this guy's going for style points in Team 12.
It's a fun start, no doubt about that.
Modica takes his first starting pitcher. What do you guys think about this? Eric's on the clock. Lucas, this strategy here, is this something you comfortable with 11, with all the hitters and then Valdez?
Don't have as much 12-team experience as you, but if you're going to take all those hitters, a person like Framber Valdez, who has elite durability, is a guy that I think you can rest your laurels on. So if you're going to execute this strategy, which seems reasonable to me, if you can find later upside guys, yeah, I think it's great. And getting Framber as your rock is a good call.
There's the number 6 pick for Eric Cross at Eric Cross 04. John Duran, what are the chances that he is the number 1 closer this year in fantasy?
I think he could. I was really glad. I was worried. I'm like, I saw that the 3 reliever picks in the middle of the last round with Williams, Diaz, and Josh Hader. I'm like, man, this could be a pretty hard run here. So I'm glad Duran fell there. I love Duran. Like, I think he easily could be the number 1 guy. And obviously the 3 in front of him are very, very good. But you watch Duran pitch. You get the triple-digit stuff. You got the curve. You got the splinker, or whatever you want to call it, splitter, whatever you want to call it. I like calling it the splinker. I think that's a fun word. So Minnesota's going to be obviously pretty competitive this year. He's going to get a lot of saves. I've been trying to. I think he can be just as good or better than the guys in front of him, and you're usually getting him around later. So those guys have what ADP is 35-40 range. He's more like 55 or so ADP. So I'll gladly take a 1-round discount and then get that hitter beforehand.
Famous YouTube fantasy baseball chat man, Uncle Ted. He has been in all of our drafts so far. He says starters are such a waste. They take a set and forget bat away from your lineup. So you must like Team 11, Uncle Ted. Thank you for joining us. All right, here we go. Around the turn, we got some more Yellow Brick Road, Logan Gilbert, Zach Eflin, Yuri Perez. Are you guys just buying into all these Seattle pitchers here?
Yeah, I like Seattle pitchers a lot, just especially George Kirby. I was actually debating him when I took Lopez. I think Kirby's that good. I think the K rate ticks up. I mean, he hasn't been, he's just slightly above average K rate so far, but definitely has the upside for more, for sure. And obviously one of the highest floors in baseball. What do you have, like a 2% walk rate or whatever it was last year? And yeah, that rotation is pretty damn good. They've done a good job building that rotation, especially from within. They developed basically all of these guys, or most of them. Obviously, they traded for Castillo, but yeah, they've done a really good job up there, and they get the hitting. Seattle's gonna be a pretty fun team. But yeah, Gilbert right there, I have no issues with that. Though I would have taken Biery or G-Rod in front of him personally, but I think both of those guys have top 5 SP upside like this season.
Yeah, that Baltimore rotation and the unfortunate news with Kyle Bradish. Hopefully, things are going to be on the up and up, and it's not as severe as we think. But if he'll be back, by the way, Eric, I know that's way down the line, and don't want to necessarily go with, but like guys like that and Cody Senga, Walker Buehler, Lodolo, are you comfortable with stashing somebody like that in a format like this?
I am. I think you've seen obviously the price tags of the 2 recent ones, with Senga and Bradish really fall off. I think I just got Bradish in one of my leagues. I like picked 300 and something. So if they fall, I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to stash them for at least a month or two. But both Bradish and Senga were 2 guys I loved a lot as SP2s this year. Like that SP2 range was really fun with those 2, with Cole Reagans, Freed, the young guys, Yuri, Bobby, etc. So losing those 2, luckily I didn't have many shares of them yet. But yeah, I wouldn't be opposed. If they fall far enough, yeah, I think they're definitely solid stash targets. And just cross your fingers and hope that it doesn't turn into season-long surgeries or something like that. So.
Team 1 there around the corner. They took Eric Cross and Vlad Sedler favorite. I'm sure Lucas as well. Tristan Casas happens to be the cover boy here of this YouTube stream here. If you can see him peeking out through the background, he's looking at his own pick right there, pick 7. How do you feel about him compared to any of you guys, about him versus like a Goldschmidt? Christian Walker? Like, does there become a point where our sort of obsession and infatuation with him gets a little out of hand, or is he just going to live up to all of it?
I really think he lives up to it. I mean, I've watched Cassis ever since the day we drafted him, back in 2019, I believe it was, and hearing an interview from him, because the minor league numbers were good, not gaudy by any means, and I forget who was interviewing him, but they're asking him, hey, you have all this power, you haven't been really hitting a lot of home runs. He's like, well, I'm not trying to right now. He was working on other aspects of hitting, working the count, going the other way, stuff like that. And I absolutely love that response. He knew he has the power. He can just, click, snap his fingers, turn that power right back on. And we saw that. And he was tied for 5th, or not tied for 4th, excuse me, in both like WOBA and WRC Plus after July 1st last year. So, yeah, I think, obviously he's struggling this spring, whatever. I'm not worried about it. I mean, this guy could finish ahead of Vlad Jr. this year, and it wouldn't shock me one bit.
All right, here we go. Turning the corner again. Eric will be picking up. We've got 2 catchers off the board now. Adley Rutschman in the 6th. JT Realmuto in the 7th. Where are you, Lucas, with catchers this year here as Eric is about to make his 7th pick in this format? Are you okay with waiting on them, punting, or do you like to grab one of those early guys, what you think you'll be doing in your 12?
Price point on Adley Rutschman is just way too expensive for a guy who's probably not going to hit 30 home runs. JTR is a bit different since he's going to potentially provide a nice amount of steals for you, a rare trait at the position. And then I like Will Smith, obviously, just for the lineup context. And then really where I want to live, if I can get 2 of the guys in the Wilson Contreras, Sean Murphy area, I'm happy with O'Hoppe for the elite volume. He's going to play most every day. What I would love to do is avoid anything below Ryan Jeffers. I like Ryan Jeffers, but even his volume in a 12-team OC is questionable. So yeah, you just don't want to leak any playing time in an OC in my mind, because you don't have to if you don't want to.
Now, I want to ask you 2 a question, because one of these 2 guys is approaching ADP range for this guy. Any hesitancy with either of you drafting the guys that are still unsigned, given that it's March 9th, season's coming up, guys like Snell, Jomo, etc. Any hesitancy from either of you?
Go ahead, Vlad.
Like Joe Montgomery?
Yeah, Montgomery or Snell.
Yeah, I mean, there's the rumors here now of like Snell possibly signing with the Angels, which I think you'll see an automatic bump in his ADP because he has fallen in these OCs. He had been going in the 70s. I'm sorry, in the 60s. Now he's going in the 70s, and as soon as he signs with the team, it'll just be he's not a shiny new toy, but he is the reigning NL Cy Young winner and the massive strikeouts and everything. And so just having a new uniform, you'll see a little bit of a price bump, but I think it is a little scary, little bit of a trap. Not even where he lands, right? It's just the fact that he does walk guys at a 12-13% clip. It's really scary. And he's had 2 amazing seasons and then 3 basically like not so good ones, if I recall correctly. So I don't know. There are just so many good pitchers. You're seeing them there in the middle of that board that I feel are kind of younger and are a little, I guess, quote unquote, safer.
Yeah, it's either Cy Young or a 4+ ERA from Blake Snell. There's like literally nothing in the middle. He's fun to watch, though.
Absolutely is. All right, we got some closers here off the board. Jordan Romano, that team 12, they went with the 2 big hitters in the beginning with by the way, no stolen bases, and then just went heavy pitching. 4 starters. Sounds like they'll be doing well in the ratio categories and wins and probably strikeouts. Got a closer, the stolen bases. You need those to compete in an overall contest. Here we go, Eric. On the clock, pick 10. We didn't touch on it, but Wilson Contreras, we were talking about catchers at the time. I think it's a very solid pick. I think he has a good chance of being the top catcher this season. And then Goldschmidt, man, nice and safe.
Very safe.
Not bad for a Tristan Casas consolation prize.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Goldie, did fall off a little bit last year, but I think that St. Louis team as a whole really fell off last year. And look at the metrics with Goldie. I mean, yeah, are his best days behind him? Absolutely. But the metrics were still very good last year and really were better than what he had on the surface, which again wasn't bad, just lower than what we come to expect from a guy like Paul Goldschmidt. But yeah, getting him, Cassis has always been my target at first, but Goldie, old reliable there, and William Contreras. Yeah, I was debating between Contreras and Will Smith there at that pick. They're basically a toss up for me. Adley's my C1. But Contreras and Smith are right there, too. I think the 3 of them are close, and then I have JT as my 4 at that position. And Contreras, though, he became a better pure hitter, cut down the K rate, improved contact rates while still having pretty good power in a decent Milwaukee lineup, too. So, again, it's basically a coin flip between him and Smith for me. And I already had a couple of Smith shares, so I decided to go the other way and go Contreras there.
And the way I look at it is like Matt McLain feels like your swingman as far as the batting average is concerned, because you'll get something probably over 285 from Juan Soto. Randy Arozarena is a little bit on the lower end, but hey, he can hit 260 in a given season. And then Wilson Contreras and Goldschmidt usually help in that category as well. So is like McLain going to be a 240 guy versus a 280 guy? It's kind of a swing and something we'll look for in the rest of your draft here.
Yeah. Did you guys notice that Wyatt Langford just got put in for where Romano was originally?
I saw that. I saw the pick go like back to the 6th pick of the round, blah blah blah, and then Langford got pop in there. See, there's anything in the chat room about that?
Yeah, the guy probably stopped or hit admin button to. Yeah, as long as no one else takes him and the draft hadn't gone too many rounds in advance, hadn't gone too many picks ahead, that can be allowed if somebody's off their internet or whatever. So yeah, this guy's going for fancy, or maybe he's watching the stream and realized that he doesn't have stolen bases. So there you go.
I'm not sure who it is, but in the chat, they did get that swap in there. And they also said, I haven't drafted a closer since 2013. Don't know if that was just like, tongue in cheek trying to be funny, or if that's legit, but
this is the exact type of people that, I mean, no offense, Team 12, that's who you want to draft against. You want somebody like that who walks into a format like the NFBC and doesn't fully comprehend the value of it. So maybe he'll fab some saves during the course of the season, but it doesn't work here. This isn't your, mom and pop, no offense, Yahoo League, ESPN League, great places to play your home league, but this isn't points head to head. This is a roto. You're looking for balance. If you don't have any saves, you're going to have a really tough time winning your league, and you have to fight for people or with people in your league for the save guys that pop up during the season. So that's an upward battle.
For sure. I mean, did I want to draft a reliever in round 6? No, I don't think anybody wants to, but yeah, you absolutely have to. That balance is needed. I never punt any categories. I think that's really risky and a tough way to win, or even waiting too long on a certain category or position. But yeah, and then if you're trying to make it up in a fab league, I mean, I think the 2 biggest, percentage, if you took like the fab pie, and looked at it like by chunks of players. I think those two biggest chunks are, closers that kind of move into the role throughout the year, and then obviously the big name prospects that come up. I think that's probably maybe half of the fab overall every year, or at least close to it. So trying not to put myself into that hole where I'm trying to outbid and spend $150 on a closer just because I screwed up my draft and didn't get enough balance.
And yeah, I mean, there's something needs to be said about the fact that this is it's like a DFS GPP, like a tournament contest where there are going to be 3,000 teams in this thing, and if you want to win the grand prize of 150,000, you got to have a lot of things go right for you, get a bit of luck, but you also have to grind all season. So yeah, you do kind of shoot for upside, but there's a limit. Like you want to have a balance. There's nothing wrong with mixing in a Goldschmidt type, these guys that are, are consistent and solid every year. So that's how people will learn. Matt asks, do we think this is where Langford's new ADP settles in? So that's like probably 80-ish. Yeah, it absolutely is. And if he keeps hitting more home runs in spring training, and as soon as they say, oh, he's made the team, it's gonna be who knows what it'll be. All right, here we go.
A lot of my bats in my queue are just going right now. I was looking at both Steer and Carter, and they both just went.
What's it like, by the way, talking, and I know you've done these before, but just like being live on the clock and having to make your picks. I know for me, it's not easy.
Oh, it's fun though.
It is.
It's kind of fun to like talk through my thought process while on the air here. Oh, there goes Bednar. Bednar is, usually a guy I have a decent amount of shares of. He's top 10 reliever, set him and forget him. Everyone kind of overlooks him every year, I feel. I mean, yeah, he still gets drafted fairly high, but it's just like a Pittsburgh thing. I think people, unless their name is O'Neal Cruz, Pittsburgh guys get undervalued. Brian Reynolds has always been pretty undervalued as well. Mm-hmm. Super consistent. Same with Bednar. He's not as flashy as Diaz or Duran, but gets the job done. Get you saves, get you good ratios, and you don't have to worry about him.
Yeah, so the Pirates were tied for 6th in total saves last season, and we're just up there in save opportunities. They were just winning a lot of small short games, and Bednar basically grabbed like 83% of his team saves. So he is kind of the man there. They did sign Aroldis Chapman. Bednar has some lat issues. Looks like he should be fine. I think that's the only area of concern. But when I was talking about closers earlier, it was in reference to me kind of undervaluing Emmanuel Clase. And this is a dude that has literally had the most saves in baseball over the last 2 seasons, like the only guy over 40 each of the last 2 years. And he grabbed 94% of his team's save shares last year. And he's kind of, he's not undervalued because he is going in that top tier. But I think the concern last year was like the K rate drop off. Like he just wasn't quite there. He wasn't like the super amazing ratios guy. But I don't know. Just feels like somebody that in my process of writing the article that I sort of rediscovered.
Yeah.
Here we go. Another pick coming up here for, thanks everybody by the way, for jumping in. I'm trying to keep up with the comments here. A lot of people here. I love the Eric Cross, like you kind of bring in the new flavor. Like there's all these, people that are like exposed to NFBC for the first time. You've got a very large following. And so this is really cool to have you draft live here. Of course, Lucas is heavy on both sides, NFBC and Dynasty. So fun to be doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, here we go.
Speaking of undervalued, Justin Steele. I love having Steele as my SP3 here.
That's pretty good SP3. This is a guy that ERA under 3.3 each of the last 2 seasons. Cubs provide good run support. He was first half of the season kind of a Cy Young candidate, really.
Yeah. And it's funny. He's a guy I wasn't overly high on. Like even the early part of last year, I don't think I had any shares of him. So I was kind of questioning. He was mostly a 2-pitch guy, and those guys I usually question. But then after 2 straight years of pretty good production of like top 25 SP value, it's kind of like, all right, whatever he's doing, it's working. And I've kind of started buying in more this year. And especially if we get him an SP2, I'm not so much there, but SP3, I'm fine with that.
Lucas, a question from Anthony Gialdi.
No, went on a big hike today though, so
Nice.
just didn't get changed. So yeah,
There we go. Anthony Gialdi always in there.
Kansas City moves.
hockey team.
Absolutely. Yeah, I used to live in Kansas City, and Gialdi talked about that a little bit, so that was fun talking to good old AG.
All right, here we go, turning the corner. And as Eric makes his pick here, look at Team 11. So that's a strategy that either you usually, we know that this is a veteran player in Modica, but you only would go this way either if you really know what you're doing or you don't have a clue. So obviously Matt does, and that can work out really well because he's still got a whole bunch of good pitchers. Obviously question marks with guys like Stale and Bieber. Do they bounce back? But a very interesting strategy. And Eric popped one of my favorite guys in this range, Seiya Suzuki. Just really in on these Cubs hitters this season.
Yeah, going Cubs double tap there. I love Suzuki. You look at his metrics are all really, really good across the board. I mean, he had a little bit of a sluggish first half of the year, but really turned it on. It was kind of quietly like a top 20 hitter the last 2.5 months of last season. And I think this could be like his best year yet. I mean, look at a guy that's capable of, being in the 30 homer range. It gives you a little bit of speed, maybe gives you a 9, 10, 11 steal, something like that. He hits for a good average. That Cubs lineup to be pretty solid got around him. So I think you're looking at a really, a guy that I could easily see him moving up into the maybe even like the Christian Yelich range of ADP. Like next year, this guy could be someone we're targeting, like pick 60 or something like that. Like 5th, 6th round or so. So I like Suzuki a lot. It was between him and another outfielder who has not gone yet. So I'm not gonna say the name, but yeah, Suzuki I think is in store for his best year yet.
I'm surprised he's priced where he is. I thought he might be a little bit higher since.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Just a buzz guy and excellent metrics. Yeah.
By the way, 2 years ago, I went to a Dodger game. If you guys know Chef Mike Armstrong, also plays NFBC executive chef. He invited me to a game in the Cubs Dodgers, and we were sitting in the Cubs area, and I hadn't even noticed it until like later in the game until he mentioned me. But there was this lady sitting in front of me and holding a baby, and the baby was facing me the whole time. We were like making faces, and the whole time it turns out it was Suzuki's wife and kid. So,
oh wow,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Some other teams here we haven't talked about. Let's looking at Team 7. This is kind of like it's we use the word sexy in fantasy, or at least I do. Like this is like a not sexy team, but it works. Like these are good players, a lot of like potential bounce back guys, just like really solid. So I kind of do like Team 7 there with the Tucker team.
Yeah, no, nothing wrong with that. You got 2 Seattle arms to anchor your staff. Already got his reliever. Yeah, Walker's another guy that's super undervalued. And I think he outperformed Vladimir Guerrero Jr. last year. Obviously, Vlad's the younger, sexier name with more upside. But Walker is like, if you just want top 100 production, you know what you're getting with Walker, and he's just very solid. So
I find it interesting that he filled his corner infield and his middle infield before he got a second outfielder. Not that that's a bad call or anything, but just not necessarily what I usually see. But yeah, got a lot of depth there on the hitting side, and he'll have to make up for some pitching later on. But he's got 2 horses to start him off.
Let it out, Lucas. They're coming into a beat league. It's televised. So yeah, just let them have it. But yeah, no, it works out. But that is a good point. Something I hadn't noticed. So they got right. They have their first, third, and corner through the draft. And you're right, just one outfielder so far.
And that makes it so Gunnar Henderson's dual eligibility really doesn't serve any purpose anymore. I do like that they jammed in some steals with Real Muto, though. So that's a nice positive.
Here we go. Turning the corner. You're going to get a lot more bang for your buck today because it is a little bit of a shorter show. We're going about an hour 20 total. We've got about half an hour here. So you'll get a few more rounds. We'll get into like the middle of this draft and some of the more fun picks, right? Because we're a lot more comfortable with the top of the board. This is where things get interesting. And you see the big bopping catcher Francisco Alvarez coming off the board here. How do you guys feel about those guys, the 30 home run ish potential catchers who can also maybe tank your batting average, like the Cal Raleigh, Francisco Alvarez? Is it just like a roster construction thing, or how do you usually navigate those?
Yeah, no, I usually don't target those guys too often. I mean, I just hate having the thought, unless they fall to a point where I'm like, all right, the value's too good here to pass up. It's not really looking to grab a guy that's going to hit me, potentially 220. And I've had, concerns with Alvarez hitting for average ever since I saw him in Double A. I mean, I knew the power was there, but at the same time, people are like, "Oh, he's a lock for 35 home runs," blah blah blah. And yeah, he absolutely has the power to do so. But at the same time, I'm trying to pull it up right here real quick. So I was looking at this not too long ago. We have not had a lot of like 30 homer seasons from catchers. I mean, I think we had. I'm pulling it up right now on Fangraphs here. I think it was like 8 or 9 over in this century. So
Yeah.
do they have the power? So yeah, but a lot of times these guys don't play often enough. Yeah, so here it is: 30 homer catchers since 2000. We've had 7. Cal Raleigh last year, Sal Perez in 2021, Gary Sanchez in 2017, then a massive 15-year gap back to Mike Piazza, who did it 2000, 2001, 2002. We've had 7 seasons of 30 home runs of a catcher. So it's just you don't see it that often.
Here we go, going through round 11, and pretty nice team that you're building there, Team 10. By the way, I just kind of noticed this. So FTNFantasy.com, that's where we all write and produce content for. And looking into the in-season plan, we kind of have a big chunk of the weekend team here because I cover the Fab articles over the course of the season. Eric Cross will be back for another year managing the pitcher rankings and the pitching planner. And Lucas will be managing our hitter rankings. So we got the weekend crew. We got another surprise for you on another awesome article, pretty novel, that will be a ranking also for this season coming up. So
first base run right there. Naylor, Torque, and Yandy.
I guess think of like Josh Naylor's, the fact that he almost had 100 RBI in like a massive gap between his runs and RBI and like very limited at bats. Like how crazy was that? And like what kind of repeat are we looking for him this season?
Yeah, Naylor's funny. Very split camp on Naylor, I feel like this year, where a lot of people are like, "Oh, he could be a top 5 first baseman." I mean, he's a fun little profile. Gives you a little bit of speed from this position as well. He had 10 steals last year, hit 308. But yeah, you mentioned 97 RBI to 52 runs scored. You gotta imagine that goes up a little bit, but especially when guys like DeLauder and others are up and helping that team out in the bottom third of the order. So yeah, I like Naylor there. I think he's like a top 12 or so first baseman.
Randy jumps in our streams here and there, also an FTN sub, I believe. He's asking for sleeping on Torkelson, former number 1 overall pick. I don't know, because his prices, I mean, he did have a good season last year. I think the average is always a concern, but yeah, of course, 40 and 100 is potentially on the table with a guy like that.
More an average issue with me for Torkelson. You're not going to go bankrupt if you draft him because he's proven he is an excellent power bat, but I think 230, 240 average is what you should be looking at, and that's a little bit of a drag. Not a big deal where he goes, but a consideration.
Coming up on Eric's 10th pick here, 11th pick here.
Yeah, I
just
130
on the clock.
I just got sniped. I was gonna go with Geloff there. I love Geloff's 25-25 potential from second base, but
the McLean Geloff combo, by the way. And it's funny, if you swap the two, right? I mean, you would just swap their ADP. It's really all about the team context, right? Because there's a lot of similarity. Do you think one guy is like so much better? Like, would Geloff be a better fantasy player if he was on the Reds instead of McLean?
I mean, possibly. I do think McLean's a better pure hitter, so I think he has that. But yeah, if you put, I think power speed, you probably give it's either even or you give the edge to Geloff slightly. So yeah, I think that would definitely change things a good amount. There's Jordan Walker. He was the guy I was debating on with Suzuki, so that's good here. I'm gonna go with a guy who I think is underrated here. Another dual eligible guy. I'm going Tyro Estrada here.
Very solid, safe and steady. You're going to get your bang for your buck there, I think.
Yeah, and the way he ended last year too, after he came back from dealing with I forget what he had. It was an ailment that he was dealing with, but look that he started the season strong, little softer in the middle part as he was dealing with whatever it was. Then he ended the season strong. So I think he's a pretty solid value here.
And he probably would be going a couple rounds higher had he played the full year because he was pacing for 30 plus stolen bases.
Yeah.
The only concern.
I think you could see like 16, 17 home runs, 25, 26 steals and a decent enough like 270-ish average. The lineup's not great around him, but I think for what he brings to the table, I think it's an appropriate value.
Here we go, turning the corner, and yeah, this is when you kind of it's not always ideal drafting next to a advanced player on the turn there when they're just picking off value here and there. So Team 11 Modica hasn't drafted a hitter in several rounds, and then he picks off a super devalued now Tanner Scott, and of course there are question marks because the guy has walked. He had like 4 walks or 5 in an outing, and now the people are calling for it's Nard dog season, Andrew Nardi, whatever. You always say overhyped, but no, he's fine. I like Tanner Scott a lot.
I almost took him. I was very much debating Tanner Scott there last pick because I love Tanner Scott. Like everything across the board with him was elite last year. Like look at the Savant page; it's just littered with like dark red everywhere you look. In terms of he trimmed the walk rate from where he was previous years. Hopefully that can stick. He misses bats, doesn't give up hard contact, gets ground balls, like everything you want from a guy that you're gonna have a pretty solid investment on. So kind of sucks that I was hoping he'd come back to me, and I would have taken him 100% with this next pick, but we'll see who's still there for me.
Tanner Scott, former Orioles prospect, lefty, as soon as he came to Miami. I think the walk rate has always been a little bit of an issue, but he dipped that down a little bit to, I think it was like the 8 to 10% range, where he's usually like a 12% plus on the walk rate. But yeah, he's obviously pretty solid. Albert Alzolay is a guy that just writing my positional tiers relief pitcher piece just reinforced to me, he really seems to me like would be the guy. I know the Cubs added Hector Neris, and they've got Julian Mayweather there and Mark Leader Jr. But Alzolay, man, like all those guys I just named are like 10+% walk guys, like very dangerous. Whereas Alzolay is like just tucked in there, one of the lower. He's like Raisel Iglesias type, like 5 to 8% walk rate. And he's just solid. He doesn't give you the massive strikeout upside, but he's a closer that can like hold his job, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at Alzolay, it was always kind of trending like, all right, a couple of years ago, this guy eventually is going to be a closer and probably a pretty good one. And now he's started getting that shot last year. I do think he is the guy this year. 25 plus saves, good ratios, good amount of strikeouts. He was my plan B since Scott left. And I think after that range of relievers, I think there's a pretty decent drop. But you still got Kenley in there, but I'm kind of questioning. He's already dinged up. He's older.
I can't do it.
Does he get traded middle of the year? Obviously, if the Sox aren't contending, I think he's a strong trade candidate, and maybe to a contending team that already has a closer. So maybe he goes into an 8th inning role for the last third of the season. So I like Kenley decent amounts, and maybe I would have gone with him next set of picks if Alzolay was taken before me. But yeah, I think getting Alzolay after him, that's where my rankings kind of fall off. So the fact that I already have 2 guys with Alzolay and Duran, I feel pretty good about that.
Cedric Mullins off the board. Last I checked, he was still dealing with an injury, right? Does he have a missing opening day risk?
I feel like it's kind of like 50-50 right now. I've kind of heard that he will be ready. Heard he might start on the IL. I mean, they have plenty of options. If he were to start on the IL, probably Colton Cowser would take over that spot. But his metrics are kind of declining. But again, he's still a potential 15-30 guy if he's healthy. So getting that around pick, what pick are we at? 140 something? That's fine.
So I've been kind of off the Mullins train, even like for the most part in draft season. And when I was working through outfielders, I noticed something crazy. So the guy only played 116 games, so it was around 450 plate appearances. Do you know he had 74 RBI? Like he would have had 100 plus and 15 homers and 19 stolen bases, and the average was garbage. It was 230, but like wow, it's just I don't know. To me, it's just a sign of like just get in on those Orioles, especially that they have a really nice looking on paper month of April. If you look at their schedule, they're facing all like the worst teams in baseball. They can start off really hot.
Yeah, absolutely. Orioles looking at a problem.
Looking at Eric's team, I don't know if he did it on purpose or not, but if the Cubs have a great year, that'll help him a lot. He has their ace pitcher, one of their best hitters, and their closers. So I don't know if that was intentional, but
I'm going heavy National League Central here the last See, 5 of my last 6 picks from the National League Central. So
It's a good place to shop.
I like the Cubbies. I think there's a lot of good value on the Cubbies to be had in drafts. So yeah, I'm fine. People like tell me like, oh, you got to shy away from stacks. Why?
No, why?
I mean, they're like,
I mean,
oh well,
shy away from the A stack, yeah. But
yeah. They're like, yeah, if they have a bad day, you have a bad day. I'm like, all right, if they have a good day, I have a good day. So it's it goes both ways. So if the value's right, then I'm fine.
Absolutely.
Oh, there's Jackson Holiday. I was kind of wondering where he would go in this.
So
Now
this
that
is
yeah,
it's early per OC, but I
yeah.
did want to ask you guys both because you are very heavy in prospects and dynasty, like his redraft value, and especially in a format like this with the obviously the high upside. But what are like the reasonable expectations for him for this season?
For me, he's a tier below, the Langfords, the Carters, the Churios, even for this year. I mean, long term, I think he could be just as good as those guys. But the question I think is, where does the power? Like, what do you get for home runs from him this year? I mean, he looks stronger, but he's still not driving. He's hitting more like line drives into the gap right now than really driving it in the air, getting it over the fence. So I think you're getting a high average. I mean, the guys just hit for average everywhere he's gone. You'll probably get 20 plus steals right away. But is he 10 home runs? Is he 17, 18? I think that's going to be the real big X factor with his value. But yeah, I would have probably waited another round or two on him here. But hey, I mean, it could work out if the power's there.
By the way, how ironic that Christian. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lucas. I want to hear your thoughts on Holiday before I have something to say.
Eric did a good job outlining it. I think the power is a little questionable. The steals are not CJ Abrams like. They're more solid, but
Yep.
You're relying on a big average and good volume, which he could do, but I don't know. He doesn't really have that loud upside right away. The kid was 19 years old a few months ago, so he's still got a ways to develop.
My comment was going to be how Christian Encarnacion Strand is literally popping off the page or like off of his box. I wonder if he'll do that in the real life, in the real world baseball.
Well, it's funny. I did a tweet a little while ago about outside of Ellie, who's your favorite of these Reds youngsters between Encarnacion Strand, Noelvi, and McLean, and I couldn't even fit in the we put the poll options. His name was too long by 2 letters.
Yeah.
So I cut the first and just put the last name. I was like, geez, his name is so long. It's insane. It makes Jaroslav Lamacchia look tame.
Oh man. Yeah, one of those names that when you're a writer, you just kind of at a certain point you just memorize and you just know you have to know how to spell it. But we all have our what is it called? The just the names that are sometimes easier that we just can't spell sometimes for whatever reason. I don't know. Let's go. Round 13. Keep it moving. We're going to take you here another 10, 15 or so minutes, and we're moving fast. We're going to get through a few rounds here. Alec Boehm, Riley Green, a couple of nice picks there, a couple of starting pitchers. Are you guys, where are you on the Rodon train? Are you afraid to ride it?
I wasn't at first because of the ADP, but he has not looked good this spring either. So I'm not really sure where I am on Rodon right now.
It's tough.
A very risky guy for injuries. He was hurt almost his entire career. Had a huge year, cashed out in free agency, and just too risky for me with the injuries.
You took Gavin Williams there, Eric. They're in the end of the 13th. And I mean, it's right around kind of where he's going. It just depends. I've seen him go 130. I've seen him go 190, kind of a wide range.
Yep.
But because Tanner Bybee kind of really shined last season, Gavin Williams kind of fell under the radar there. And he's technically was the better prospect, right? And supposed to be the better pitcher. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like Bybee a decent amount. So no issues with him. But yeah, I like Williams more. And so I'll take Bybee went end of the 10th. So I'll take, the 3-round discount here near the end of the 13th with Gavin Williams. So I think could really pop off to be like a top 25 arm this year. And I feel like I've gone a little more on the safe side so far. Gives me maybe I can take a little bit of an upside play. I was waiting another pitcher or two there that were more in the safe end of the spectrum, but felt like I could, at least take a little bit of a risk there, go with a little bit of the upside play with Williams. So again, I think could, be a guy we're drafting, 70 picks sooner next year. I love the stuff there with Williams.
Dave Adams asks, why is Berger going so late? He's a potential 250-40 guy.
It's a good question. He's been one of my favorite targets at the third base spot. It was him. It was Noelvi Marte, unfortunately, and also Brian Hayes, who the helium's kind of getting up there with him too with the spring he's having. But yeah, there was a lot of good third base value. That's why I typically have been waiting on third base. And at this point, this guy, I don't know if he's even ready for opening day, but he's fallen enough, and I don't like any of the third baseman on the board. So I'm gonna go with Josh Young here. I mean, maybe I have to stash him for a little bit, but if it's just like a week or two, which looks like if he does miss opening day, he won't miss a lot of time. So I think at this point, with the other third baseman left, yeah, I'm fine with that.
There's a lot of opportunity on you're drafting like at what part of the preseason, like whatever news hits, there is an immediate impact of volatility of a guy that was going literally would have gone 130 earlier this morning until the news of that he's not quite ready. Now he's going 160. So yeah, I think that's absolutely fantastic. And you know, in a week, it's going to be a completely different price, but I totally like that. And you can absolutely make do because he's a guy that you're going to hold for the whole season. You know, he's probably, so long as he's healthy, he's going to get you 30 bombs, can even get 100 plus.
Yep.
Here we go. Turning the corner. Another Baltimore Oriole, Anthony Santander, kind of disrespected for a guy that goes basically 30, 95 like every year.
If I didn't need a third baseman and didn't already have three outfielders, I probably would have taken him there. Yeah, I think the value on Santander is very good. He was another guy, you know, kind of wasn't super in on. So you look at the profile a little bit more and realize like, hey, he was actually really good under the hood too. So
yeah, and that is a nice that is a professional pronunciation, Santander.
Very, very fancy Santander.
Yeah, I think we were talking about guys that are a little overlooked. I think Ian Happ fits that bill for me.
Yep.
Back-to-back catchers for Team 4. He's going with the raw power there. Perez and Raleigh. We kind of scroll up to their team. Had that really nice start with Betts, Burns, Alonso, and Altuve, and he's just kind of doing some value sniping there, and then finally gets his two catchers.
It's a great price there for Altuve.
Yeah. It was between Arozarena and Altuve for me in round 4. So
Luis Arias is a very specific roster construction fit because this is the man that is the just odds-on favorite to lead the league in batting average, and he's not a complete zero at power. I mean, he could in homers and maybe hits 5. He can also hit 12. A lot of runs and doesn't steal, so kind of an interesting profile. But it's one of those guys where you careful. Like if you already have a Nico Horner, you don't necessarily want to grab an Arias, but he does definitely fit with certain builds. And this looks like it is Team 3's middle infielder because they've got Simeon and Jackson Holiday. And the issue there is, I guess they would need a shortstop, right? Because in case Jackson Holiday doesn't start the year in the majors.
Yeah, I heard Eric talking about that as far as you want to address that shortstop early, just because if you're messing with it late in draft or on waiver wire, it can be a dicey position.
Yeah, I mean, look at the guys left by ADP. Trevor Story, injury history, lower average. Who knows what you could get out of him. Tommy Evans, fine. I guess he's already hurt right now. Adame's good power, but the average really cratered last year, hit 217. Jeremy Pena was kind of disappointing last year. Carlos Correa, kind of meh. And then you get down to like the Luis Rengifo, Zach Neto type. So yeah, it really starts falling off after like pick 150 or so.
With that being said, it looks like Team 4 is really relying on Mookie Betts to get that shortstop eligibility. So yeah,
sneaky. It's gonna have a stopgap for a few weeks. I mean, the Dodgers, it's hilarious. They spend all this money, and then they're like, oh, let's just roll with Gavin Lux at shortstop. Doesn't work out. His arm has been terrible this year. Even you see that he bounced one from second base today. I don't know if he has the yips or what, but it's just a luxury to have one of the best athletes on the entire planet. Like, yeah, let's just move Mookie over there. guy's just like a phenomenal athlete in everything he does. So
we're going to take you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, we're going to take you here through pretty much just turn the corner and kind of close things up. But yeah, by the way, the baseball pods brackets are happening. Both Eric's podcast with Chris Clegg, the Fantasy Tool Shed, right? That's the name of the podcast. What's the Twitter handle there?
Toolshed Pod's the Twitter handle.
Yeah, and then the FTN Fantasy podcast with myself and Jason Anthony. We're both have made it into the next round. So if you are on that, make sure to give both of us a vote and have us climb. Your podcast did pretty well. You had some big upsets last year and got to the Final Four?
Yep, we got to the Final Four last year and lost to, I believe it was CBS we lost to last year, but we took down Sleeper in the Bus last year. So it was so many good podcasts right now in this industry, and this is a great way to. I mean, even myself, obviously, we're all in the industry, but I'm still seeing several new podcasts every year that Chris Baseball Pods does this. I'm like, oh, hey, let me just go, check that one out and give them a follow. And I think that's good. People can add some new podcasts to their rotation and find some podcasts they didn't know even existed. So great job by Chris Baseball Pods there.
Yep.
Phenomenal thing he does every year.
Yep. Fantastic. Yeah, lots of talented podcasters, writers, analysts out there. Speaking of that, I got two of them with me. That's Eric Cross at Eric Cross 04 and Lucas Biery at Lucas Biery 33. I'm Vlad Sedler at RotoGut and FTNFantasy.com. That's where we're at. This is the Eric Cross beat Eric Cross OC 12-team championship, looking to score that 150,000, and then he'll probably I don't know. That's the first step to buying a team, to buying your own like minor league team, right? And then you'd be the ultimate prospect guy.
That would be awesome. I would love to go to the ballpark every single day. That'd be the dream, right?
Indeed, it would be. Ooh. And Eric, by the way, weekly Dynasty article crossed up with us over at FTN Fantasy. Lucas is working on the spring training reports weekly, and he's got some awesome stuff in the draft guide as well. We've got big plans in season, so make sure to check us out, ftnfantasy.com. Final words about the draft, about baseball, about anything. We'll start with you, Lucas.
Question, you just made me kind of think of something there when you mentioned the team with Eric. Do you ever run up there to Cape Cod for any of those games, Eric, just to kind of see the college guys on their showcase?
It's been on my bucket list. Cape Cod actually is a haul. You think it's just 2 states away, but it's way out there in Massachusetts. So it's like, we're talking 4+ hour drive for me. I was almost going to go out. I was really starting to look at, places to stay back in 2020. And then obviously everything happened back then. So I might try to get out there this year. We'll see. I've already done a lot of traveling so far this spring. But yeah, definitely. It's a lot of fun. Jeff Ponce, Baseball America, goes out there every year. Does a lot of great coverage, and it's fun to see those the next star prospects going through the Cape Cod League. So definitely trying to get out there at some point.
Guys, this was phenomenal. Eric, this is a fantastic start. I wish you luck for the second half of your draft. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Obviously, you can watch us at any time on the FTN Fantasy YouTube channel. For Lucas Biery, for Eric Cross, I'm Vlad Sedler. Best of luck in the rest of your drafts.